You may have noticed that financial professionals like their jargon. Take, for example, alpha and beta. What exactly do those terms mean? Well, simply put, beta is the return of the market, the S&P 500, for example, or the FTSE 100. Alpha is performance over and above the market return.
I think the industry does a really bad job with terminology, Rob, and we make it very difficult for the average Joe to understand investments, and this is a key example. And if we strip it back, alpha and beta is just simply the terminology used to describe returns generated by a market. So if we go back to my FTSE 100 example, perfect beta would be the returns attributed to the market itself, the FTSE 100. And then alpha is just used to describe anything that outperforms that benchmark. And another way to think about that is anything that's unexplained from market returns. A key example of that would be manager outperformance, for example, where they've selected different overweights and underweights on that market that they feel will underperform and outperform. And if they get that right and create alpha, then we would attribute that to, say, manager skill or potentially manager luck.
The problem with alpha is that it's very hard to access. Often, as we've heard, it has less to do with skill than luck. The good news is that for most investors, beta is sufficient. And the simplest and cheapest way to access beta is to invest in an index fund.
Index funds they do what they say on the tin. So the fund is just the vehicle that the securities lie in. And in an index fund's case, it's the index that is the investable market. The fund itself just tracks that exact same investable universe. When a fund drops out of the index, the fund trades out of the fund. And so index funds are simply just vehicles for investors to track indexes over time.
Now, without wanting to overcomplicate matters, there are different types of beta. For example, you may have heard of alternative or strategic beta, or more likely, smart beta. In practice, they're all fairly similar.
Smart beta is where you would take segments of the market, different styles, sizes, and you would overweight to those specific parts of the beta. And the best way to describe this is our friends at Dimensional do a great metaphor here, which is to think about an ice cube tray. So if we think about the FTSE 100 as an ice cube tray sitting flat on a table, that ice cube tray can be split into, if you think about it as the companies in the index, it can be split into size, can be split into style, being cheap or expensive securities, or potentially profitability, how profitable securities can be. And smart beta, if you like, or factor investing, would take that ice cube tray and simply tilt it so that the water would run into different segments of the market they feel academics have proved to outperform. And then once frozen, you would own more of those tilted assets and less of the ones they don't feel the academic support over time.
So far, we've talked about alpha, beta, and smart beta in relation to equities, but all of these terms apply equally to bonds or fixed income. Active bond managers, like equity managers, struggle to produce consistent alpha. But again, beta is generally sufficient.
What we've seen through our historical data that Wrench has mentioned, we see several market downturns that can be attributed to different factors. What's interesting is no single part of the fixed income market is predictable enough to defend every downturn. So if you were in government bonds for the last 100 years, it wouldn't have defended you in every single downturn. If you were in corporate bonds, the same would apply. So you want to be diversified across that fixed income spectrum so that you can benefit from its defensive nature. Fixed income has indexes just like equities, and actually we find that the fixed income market is slightly more predictable than equities. So those indexes are just as easy to track, and actually they can be cheaper to track given the sample size that you need to invest in order to track that.
Investing jargon can be very off-putting, but it's worth taking time to understand the basic concepts behind it. Alpha and beta are good examples.